Picture me as a weary traveler, covered in the dust of forgotten roads, and you've just pulled up a chair right by my dying fire. Gather close, because today we're diving into a truly chilling explainer, a graphic folklore warning about a haunted community that literally lost its soul to a labyrinth of its own making. We're going to explore how totally ordinary neighbors just traded away their integrity for comfortable illusions, and, well, the terrifying price they ultimately paid for it.
What's wild is that these citizens were transformed into mere props in a, as the tale calls it, thresher of humanity. And the scariest part? This wasn't some sudden invasion by outside forces. No, it was an internal surrender. The people in this tale willingly traded their inner compass, their personal integrity, for these toxic, comfortable illusions. They just succumbed to this unproductive stagnation that ground them down to absolutely nothing.
So, let's start with part 1, the Labyrinth of Time.
I want you to really picture this maze. It is a terrifying, claustrophobic trap of endless corridors where lost souls just wander aimlessly. Imagine damp, crumbling stonework, illuminated by nothing but the flickering, alchemical comfort of the jester's magic. The shadows here, they stretch long and dark, completely severing these people from the natural laws of cause and effect. It is a literal gothic nightmare where reality is completely suspended, just replaced by this twisted theater of vanity.
Now, the dark spell that tethered their spirits to this maze was known as the Ignis Fatuus, basically the Fool's Fire. It was this massive collective delusion that constantly whispered that morality was just a tedious burden, that true greatness could simply be plucked out of thin air without putting in the actual labor of virtue. It offered them this shimmering gold of false freedom, but really, it was just masking the grim reality of their own rot.
Which brings us to part 2. Hollow puppets and false illusions.
A truly harrowing contrast started to define their whole existence. Like on one side, you have the jester's illusion offering that shimmering gold in a life with zero consequences. Sounds great, right? But the grim reality was completely different. Even though they totally believed they were free, they were actually anchored firmly to the cold stone floor by the heavy, invisible chains of their own indifference. They got trapped in a web of false intimacy, spun entirely through weaponized prose.
And as this delusion really took hold, these once vibrant neighbors transformed into hollowed-out puppets. They became empty shells, completely stripped of their own capacity for reason. Just these empty-eyed beings marching in a hypnotic lockstep through the dark corridors. They weren't individuals anymore. They were honestly just disposable political assets, walking aimlessly upon the wizard stage of counterfeits.
Actually, if you listen closely to the shadows of this crumbling maze, it's like you can almost hear the terrified, whispered exchange of two puppets huddled in the dark, suddenly realizing their tragic fate. One murmurs, "The light of truth is dimming," and the other replies, trembling, "I feel the chains. We're tethered to the rot." But, by the time they finally realize it, it's already way too late.
Moving right along to part 3, Metamorphosis of the Neighbors.
See, when objective truth is systematically dimmed exactly like the jester did, it creates this huge void in the human soul. And, well, nature abhors a vacuum, right? So that void was rapidly filled by a raw, unchecked appetite. It became this closed circuit of psychic hunger. The salty language of the gutter started mirroring their base nature, basically weaponizing the not-self and allowing these dark appetites to literally cannibalize their own spirit. This is the truly chilling transformation where ordinary neighbors turned into ravenous, mindless beasts, just prowling the halls, hunting the puppets who still retained even a tiny flicker of existence. What's crazy is that these monstrous predators and their hollowed-out prey, they became two sides of the exact same coin. They were birthed directly from the rot, nurtured right there inside the labyrinth. It's the ultimate embodiment of what's called the tyrant's choice, perfectly mirroring the disharmony of the soul that Socrates warned us all about millennia ago. Just like how those mythic shadow rings of invisibility corrupt the knight and the priest, this internal rot ensured that literally everyone in the village was consumed.
Which leads us to part 4, the great clock strikes. Because eventually, out of the suffocating fog of the wizard's spells came a sound, the metallic clink of the great clock of consequence. And this relentless countdown wasn't just a timepiece, okay? It was the final sound of inevitable judgment piercing straight through the illusion. The debt of their deception had finally, inescapably, come due. As that great clock tolled its final strike, the crumbling walls of the labyrinth just gave way entirely. The mercury-soaked foundations of their lies suddenly ignited into this massive crown of flame. We're meant to visualize a cleansing fire roaring through the corridors, completely consuming the ravenous monsters and the hollowed puppets together. It's tragic, really. The darkness they gleefully created for others ultimately consumed the very house they built for themselves. When the smoke cleared, all that remained of their stage of counterfeits was a charred circle and the ghostly tittering of a failed illusion. It just proves that power breathed out through the mouth is inherently self-destructive.
And finally, Part 5, The Lantern of Honesty. So how does anyone actually survive the ashes of the labyrinth? Well, you absolutely have to carry the compass of reason to navigate the dark. You've got to wear the armor of virtue to protect against the jester's cynical deconstructions. But above all else, you must wield the flickering lantern of primal honesty. That is literally your only true defense against the gathering darkness. The structural glue of any community, heck, of any individual life, just cannot be built on alchemical mechanics or comfortable lies. It has to be built on absolute truth. As the fire dies down here and my tale as a weary traveler comes to a close, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Take a look at the question here. Do you actively carry the compass of internal reason required to escape the traps of your own time? Or are you slowly, comfortably becoming just another hollowed-out prop on a modern stage of counterfeits? You have to reclaim your reason, guard your integrity, or eventually, I promise you, the great clock will toll for you.